All right, everybody. This is Coding with Bryan. This is the first episode we've done in a very, very long time, and I believe this will be the first episode that we'll do that will actually be posted to jupiterbroadcasting.com and our YouTube channel at youtube.com/jupiterbroadcasting. Before this, I've always had it up on my blog at lunduke.com. But people were really liking the show. I'm not really sure why. It's a total crap show. I don't even know why you're watching this show. Let's be honest with you. I mean, come on. Hey, you like it, so we're gonna do it for you and post it to the website. So I'm gonna just call this at the recommendation of Jeremy. This is season awesome of Coding with Bryan, and I'm gonna call this one episode Hoorah. So this is season awesome episode Hoorah of Coding with Bryan, and today I'm going to start off by talking a bit about mobile development, cell phones, PDA phones, PDAs, mobile devices, that sort of thing. But as always, Coding with Bryan is more of a discussion. So the whole thing is, if you're interested in software development, if you're interested in what makes software development tick, like how do companies get their software out there, the distribution of software, the design of software, the look and feel of software, the motivations of software companies, anything really related to the software development field, all fair game. So if you want to call into the show, we're on Skype at, my handle is Bryan Lunduke, all one word, BryanluNduke. All one word, stick it in Skype. Do a call test in Skype before you call in, just so you don't, call in and, oh, my mic doesn't work. And then I make fun of you mercilessly and call you a little Nancy boy and all sorts of things. And then you feel sad about yourself. I don't want to do that. That's not my thing, guys. So feel free to interrupt me at any point and we can just discuss these general topics. Otherwise, what's going to happen is I'm just going to start talking. I love talking, so that works out pretty well for me. All right, so let's get this kicked off here, right from the get-go with what's been going on in kind of mobile development. Oh, look at this. We got a couple more people adding us to the Skype here. All right, so I have a little bit of experience with some of the mobile platforms. I did Palm development back in the day, and of course, Palm OS development is what's the word? Oh yeah, dead. No one develops Palm software anymore. Hell, Palm Incorporated doesn't even develop Palm software anymore. So people have all moved on, and all the hype is around the iPhone and making iPhone applications. And everyone's like, "Well, hey, look at the iPhone store." People are making like a gazillion trillion dollars just by pooping out a little application on the iPhone that makes a farty noise when you touch on the little graphical finger. That's a great idea. I think every developer wants to make $1 million by making an application that does nothing but make a farty noise. However, there are now like 8 trillion applications available for the iPhone, and it's kind of missed that little hump of you can just whip out a little hobbyist app and make $1 trillion with it. Luckily, we've got things like Android, Windows Mobile, and the new Palm stuff, the WebOS or Weebos or whatever you want to call it. It's a really stupid name that they came up with for the new Palm OS thing. And of course, there's Mamo. Now, all of those are getting software stores in one incarnation or another. In fact, just this last week, Windows Mobile 6.5 just launched. And really nothing all that new is in this new Windows Mobile, except that it now includes the Windows Mobile Marketplace. So if you're a Windows Mobile dev, you can finally actually sell your Windows Mobile apps to Windows Mobile devices. Now, I'm not the hugest Windows Mobile fan out there, but as kind of a test run, I developed one app for Windows Mobile. I did a version of Radical Comic Designer, which just basically lets you take pictures with the Windows Mobile phone and put like little speech bubbles on it. Mostly I did it so I could go around and take pictures of my friends and put a little speech bubble on it that says something like "I took a poopy," and then I could save it as a little picture file and post it to my blog or Twitter, and or use it as their picture on the phone. This seems like a very important thing to me, so I had to have it. So I did it, and what I realized was Windows Mobile development is really stinking easy. And I did an iPhone app for a company in the past that they just wanted like a demo iPhone app. And it's not that bad. It's not that hard to do. You're developing it in an iPhone app in Objective-C, which is kind of funky if you're not an Objective-C dev. But the problem with iPhone development is the user interface and the actual code are very, very separate. And while I'm all for good design, keeping the UI and the code and the backend separate, good MVC style design, to be honest with you, it's so separate that it's a real pain in the butt. Whereas let's say doing Windows mobile development, I can just, drop a button on a thing, double click it. Woo, I'm in the action event for that button. I can add my code. It's just much, much easier. Now, and that's really intriguing. So iPhone development, you get a lot of stuff for free. You get good drawing and good 3D APIs and whatnot. You kind of get the same on the Windows mobile side, and honestly, you get the same on the Android side. So the capabilities of all the different devices almost seems identical right now, with the exception of WebOS from Palm, which doesn't seem all that powerful currently, which is strange. Someone in the chat room was asking, what's better, Objective C or C Sharp? I'm more of a C Sharp guy myself, to be honest with you, just purely from the language standpoint. I mean, take back what companies are getting behind something, try and ignore, at least for the technical discussion, the potential, pitfalls of using mono, or the fact that Apple is really actively backing Objective C. But I like C Sharp a little better. To me, it's a little nicer designed, and I just generally like it more. Plus, you can do a bit more with C Sharp. The C Sharp is more available on a wider variety of like operating systems and devices, and you can just do more with it. So that's kind of the way I lean there. Of course, now you can even do C Sharp development in mono for the iPhone, which kind of almost just takes away the need for doing Objective-C development for the iPhone entirely. So that's kind of the way I'd lean on all that sort of thing. That way you don't have to learn like 30,000 languages, although you should. You should learn 30,000 languages. That's just the right way to go if you're a dev. But that's kind of the way I'd lean for that. So what was I talking about? Right. So coming back to the Windows Mobile 6.5 App Store stuff. So as a dev, you want to get your apps out there. Even if it's like an open source and free app or a paid app, you want to get it out there, and you actually want to make it so people use it, because you want to feel proud of the applications you're making. And I really like Android phones. However, at present, the apps on the Android App Store are just not being all that successful. I'm really hoping that changes over the next couple of months, because there's 30 Android powered phones coming out, and I'm really hoping that really gives a big boost. However, a lot of those phones are having custom app stores, so it confuses me a little bit. So why have a custom app store for different Android devices? Why not just have one Android app store where everyone can get their information, get their apps from? That just seems like it makes more sense to me. If you're a dev, you want to hit the largest market possible with the littlest work possible. I don't want to have to repackage and resubmit my application to 30 different niche custom app stores. That's just kind of boogers is what that is. I don't like boogers. I get rid of boogers. This is what Kleenex is for. So Chris is walking around now, everybody. He's taking video of the studio while I'm recording this show. He's like, hey, everybody, Bryan, ignore me while I'm here and pretend like I'm not doing this. It's totally hard to do. Anyway, so that's just kind of annoying. So that's kind of where I look at the new Windows Mobile Marketplace. I'm like, hey, well, that's good. It's at least one marketplace, one place to get all the applications, kind of like the iPhone App Store. I like that a lot. I'm hoping they kind of on the Android side scale that back. And on the Mamo side, they really kind of haven't hit that yet. They've got a little bit of an app store on some of the Nokia phones, but it really hasn't hit its stride yet. So if you're distributing your software, you're going to have kind of a harder time with it on the Mamo side of things, especially considering that there's not that many Mamo devices out there. I mean, the Nokia N810 and the N800s are out there, and the 770s and whatnot, and the new N900 is going to be shipping soon. But let's face it, it's just one phone in a sea of phones, and the likelihood is it's not going to eke out that huge of a market share from, say, iPhone and Windows Mobile and the like, and the Android devices. So while it's an amazing phone and my favorite OS to develop for, from a pure pleasure of coding standpoint, it's still kind of a tough call. So with my apps, I develop. I'm looking at doing mobile versions of both Radical Codex and Radical Comic Designer for as many mobile platforms as I can. And I'm looking at what's the easiest to target. Well, iPhone's fairly easy to target just because, well, there's one app store. You develop it once and it works on all the iPhones and iPods and yada, yada, yada. Windows Mobile is pretty easy to target for nowadays if you assume that you only target for the Windows Mobile Marketplace. You have to change your mobile applications to support a few different screen resolutions, but otherwise, it's pretty much the same. You can do a .NET developed application in C# and target all the Windows Mobile devices. Android is a little harder still. It's got the same problems as Windows Mobile does, potentially different resolutions, a lot of different UIs for different custom carriers, but also potentially separate marketplaces, much of which is still in an unknown state. So I'm kind of hoping that all gets sorted out because I would love to get like a version of Radical Codex, right, where I could read like comic books and sync it between like a ton of different mobile devices. That'd just be great. And I'd like to see like a ton of apps like that, and all the different niches come out for a lot of the mobile devices. I just don't see any reason why they couldn't. The applications on the mobile devices are small enough that a hobbyist can develop them and compete with the big boys. Whereas for desktop applications, it becomes much harder to compete with the big boys. So I like the mobile application space, but I'm having a hard time getting behind Android because of that reason. Just because of the kind of the fractured nature of the store and the like. So anyways, that was just kind of something I've been toying with, I've been thinking about lately. And so, it's strange, but like on the desktop side, my primary focus in development is Linux. I develop my applications for Linux first, and then I port to Windows, and then I port to OS 10 afterwards. And it works really, really well that way. On the mobile front, I don't really get that option. I can go for Android, or I can go for WebOS, or I can go for Maemo if I want to target Linux first. But the reality is none of those is going to get me the big market share, and all three of those are significantly harder to target than Windows Mobile or iPhone. So you kind of almost have to go Windows Mobile or iPhone first, which kind of annoys me a little bit. I wish I didn't have to do that, but for right now, that's kind of where I'm sitting. The lines are open now, so if you've got any questions, feel free to jump on in. I've got a whole heck of a lot of stuff I could talk about related to this, but I wanted to give you guys an opportunity. I know some of you had some questions, and I wanted to give everyone a chance to hop into it. In the chat room, they seem to be talking a fair bit about unicorns. And that's great. I want to say straight up that I'm very pleased that a lot of very nerdy guys in their basements can get together on a show about software development and openly talk about unicorns. I feel like that doesn't happen enough in nowadays. Woodzen likes ponies. I like ponies. That's fantastic. I got a question here. When do you think we can use the Mac APIs without OS X? I'm moving on Fedora via GNU Step or something. Okay, actually, this is kind of a cool topic. So the main API set that developers are using nowadays on the OS 10 side is called Cocoa. It's the Objective-C based API and class framework that everyone's using. It is based on something called OpenStep, which was basically the precursor to that was developed by Next, and they got together and they made a version of it so that you can make applications for Solaris for Windows and for OpenStep, the OpenStep platform, the OS, which was previously the Next Step platform, which was developed like in the late 80s and still in the early 90s by Steve Jobs after he got ousted from Apple. It was a very cool API set, very cool set of dev tools. When Apple bought Next and Steve Jobs came back on board Apple, they killed it. They basically said no more OpenStep for Windows and Solaris. It's just a Mac-only thing now. That kind of sucks. So there's a lot of guys that got together and they created a project basically called GNU Step. It's GNU Step. It's an open source implementation of the core OpenStep API set, which is very, very cool. So if you have an older Cocoa application from the Mac side, like let's say from Mac OS 10 Server 1.0 that shipped almost 10 years ago now. Porting it over to GNU Step and having it run on Linux is actually fairly easy. And that's really, really great. Unfortunately, Apple has diverged from that core standard significantly. In fact, if you're a Mac developer, you know all too well the pains of every time Apple releases another update to their OS, even a point one. So like Mac OS 10.4, good release. 10.4.1 or 10.4.2, et cetera, et cetera. There was several point releases in there where they would make small tweaks, like they'd change the way threads work a little bit, just enough to where everyone would have to recompile their applications or they all stopped working. Or they'd take parameters and they'd switch the order you'd pass them in for no apparent reason. Super easy to fix, to be sure, but annoying as hell. And in addition, they also started merging in their other main API set, which is called Carbon, which is their old legacy Mac API set, which is what like QuickTime and everything else is based on, and merging that into Cocoa. And the end result is now it's almost impossible to develop a modern-looking Mac application without using both Carbon and Cocoa, which means that it's damn near impossible to port over any of those Mac apps to GNU Step and have it run on multiple platforms, like have it run under Linux, which really, really sucks because honestly, GNU Step is a great piece of technology. There's even like a full, basically desktop environment version of GNU Step you can get and use. And it basically makes running Linux a lot like running NextStep or OpenStep back 10, 15, 20 years ago, which is cool. But it doesn't look overly modern. They're saying in the chat room, it's ugly as sin. I generally would agree with that. It is kind of atrociously ugly, but it's still a very cool set of technology that they made it. I would like to see it embraced and maybe modernized a little bit. Would be extra great is if they took the approach with GNU Step that kind of like the Mono team took. So like so on Mono they added GTK Sharp, so you can now and GStreamer Sharp and those sorts of things. So you can access all these cool open source frameworks for doing all your multimedia and making modern looking applications. Take the same approach with GNU Step, tack in things like GStreamer or what have you, so you can do all your video and audio manipulation, and then make sure that those bindings are ported to Mac and Windows, and then have Mac developers just start making all their apps in GNU Step and just make it a standard and just ship it on all the different platforms. That would be great. I would love the dickens out of that. So that's just something I would like to see. And once again, the lines are open. This happened. Was it the last episode we did of Coding with Bryan? We got the show going, and about 15 people or so were like, "Oh man, I got so many good questions for you, Bryan. I got so many good questions." I'm assuming they're all Nancy boys because they all got really scared and decided not to call. So here's what we're gonna do. First person to call gets a virtual high five. I'm just saying, I don't give these away freely. Virtual high five. First person that called, Jeremy, this is not for you. Jeremy's sitting there behind the camera. He wants the virtual high five. I don't want to give it to Jeremy, ladies and gentlemen. Don't make me high five Jeremy. Don't make me do that. That's not cool. So yeah.
What about the Twitter question you had? Did that get answered?
Oh yeah, there was a Twitter question. What was that? Virtual high five sounds like awesome camcorder. Actually, it does sound like an awesome camcorder. There was a Twitter question I got specifically relating to developing web applications in Django, I believe it was. Let me take a look here. So, oh yeah, building scalable web apps in something like Django. Honestly, I'm not really sure. If you have any particular recommendations for really good books on building good, scalable web applications, especially with something like one of like the JavaScript Ajaxy frameworks like Django, which honestly is pretty slick. If you haven't looked at it, it's spelled DJ Ango. And I like that the last part that was super easy to spell was the one I just had the hard time with. Look it up online. It's pretty cool. I mean, if you've ever sat down and really started to develop like a big Ajaxy kind of website, you know it can be a real pain in the butt, especially to get it working across multiple platforms and browsers, and just making it look good and making it perform well can be just really difficult. Django makes it work fairly well. I'm pretty impressed. They've got a couple of sample applications you can take a look at with Django where they built kind of like social networking type websites with it. Alrighty, we've got one fancy duder here. All right, hey Jorge, how you doing? I can't hear you, Jorge. And we lost Jorge. What we had just there was someone call in not prepared. I'm sure Jorge is a cool guy, but Jorge, you are a Nancy boy. You screwed up, my buddy. You screwed up big time. No high five for you. Now, still, the high five is still available. I repeat, the high five is still available. All right. There's people talking in the chat room. I have no idea what they're talking about now. Someone just said that someone is like the guitarist. And so we're talking about guitarists, unicorns, and someone who likes ponies in the chat room today. I just want to point out that we are the biggest bunch of Nancy boys ever. All right, I'm going to click on Jorge again. And hey, Jorge, you there? Oh, I heard you for a second. How you doing? How you doing, Jorge? You here? Hello? Oh, we're dumping you. I just dumped Jorge. Jorge is gone. Ladies and gentlemen, Jorge, I'll be straight with you. You do that again, you're dead to me. Me and you, we're done. We're done. You have one last chance, Jorge. Do your Skype test call, then call. Otherwise, words. We're going to have words. That's what I'm saying. All right, so Blackberry development. So this is actually an interesting one. If anyone in the chat room has any experience with Blackberry development, definitely hop on it. This is something I've never delved into myself. I've played with all the other platforms because I've had a reason to or a drive to, but I've never actually owned a Blackberry. And I've never been in a company that was making a BlackBerry app. But I know there's lots of apps available. But here's the thing. Every BlackBerry app I've seen is ugly as sin and doesn't seem to do all that much very well. Like my co-host, Chris, on the Computer Action Show has had a BlackBerry a couple of times. And I've seen his BlackBerry apps. They look like garbage. I mean, they look worse than like Palm OS applications from like 1963, and they don't seem to do anything. And like, there's like a Twitter app that's like uglier than anything I've ever seen. And so I'm like, well, then why get a BlackBerry? Like, I've yet to see a compelling reason to get a BlackBerry. And I know BlackBerry is all about like the push notification stuff. So like you can like sync it up. So as soon as you get an email, it gets pushed to your device. But seriously, why not just have an app that, checks your email every 5 minutes? Isn't that fast enough? Seriously, do you need to get email the second it's sent? Isn't that what instant messaging is for? And if I'm out and about, if I want instant messaging, I'll friggin' turn it on. Okay, here we go. Jorge, are you a cool person, or do I need to fight you?
Hello?
Hello? Hey, Jorge.
Hi, how you doing?
Hey, man, you finally made it work. I'm proud of you. I was getting a little worried for you. I was going to be honest. I was probably going to murderize you over the internets for calling in so poorly, but now all is forgiven.
All
right, so what can I do for you today, man?
I'm right here with my phone right now. It's really hard to talk with him in my hand.
All right, I don't know what you just said, but I'm pretty sure it was dirty, and I just hung up on Jorge. Hey, Jorge, you seem like a cool guy. You did something. I didn't hear anything except for something in my hand. So we're just gonna call Jorge good. If anyone else would like to call in today, that would probably work out fantastically well. I feel bad for Jorge. Jorge probably had something really awesome to say. He was like, I have in my hand kryptonite. It's actual kryptonite. I found it. I plugged it into a supercomputer, and now I can control the weather. He could have been really actually calling in to tell me about that. But because of the horrible Skype connection and his inability to work with Skype, we will now never know how he's done that. All right, what do we got here? Let's see. They're asking me, Brian, what phone do you have now? Oh, do you guys really want to know what phone I have now? Yeah, it's this one. I hate this phone. I've got an iPhone. I hate my iPhone. I got one though. So here's the thing about owning an iPhone is you can justifiably say I hate iPhone, and you're not just an iPhone hater at that point. I have legitimate gripes with this phone because I've used it, because I actually paid money for it, used it, and I hate it. Honestly, the biggest problem with the iPhone, the reception's not that great. It's not terrible. I've seen phones that are worse. Most phones are better. The call quality on it is decent. It's kind of in the middle of the road. So, okay, sure, that's fine. And here's the one good thing about the iPhone. The speakerphone on it is fantastic. It has a great speakerphone. So that's great. I use that occasionally. Everything else about it is awful. Developing for it is meh. I would rather develop for a Windows mobile device, an Android device, a Maemo device, not a WebOS device. WebOS is stupid, but any other device would be great. Probably not Blackberry either. But then I can't just develop an app for it and throw it on my iPhone and maybe a few friends' iPhone. I can't do that. It's impossible to do that. I have to go through this huge process, pay Apple money just to let me install an application that I made. Can't stand that. Drives me crazy because I'm the kind of guy that develops really tiny little apps. Like what if I need like a soundboard application? What if I just want a soundboard application that's just sounds of Chris burping from various Beer is Tasty episodes? Well, I can go clip those out on any other platform, make myself a soundboard, and just be sitting around somewhere and push a button, and boom, Chris just burped. Thanks, Chris, for burping back there for me. That's fantastic. Can't do that for the iPhone. You know why? Because Apple hates us. That's why we can't do that for the iPhone. It's the same reason we can't run OS X on any virtualized environment. We can't just stick it in VMware like you can with, let's see, what other platforms can you do that with? Windows, every version of Linux, all the BSDs, OS2, BIOS, Haiku. Oh yeah, DOS. You can run freaking DOS in VMware. Can't do it. You can run open Solaris, actual Solaris, everything. Can't do that with what Apple makes. Apple does not want you to have flexibility. They just don't want you to have that. And it doesn't have anything to do with reducing their revenues, because let's be honest, they could make it so it was legal to do it, but it didn't perform as well if you ran OS X in a VMware, and that's totally fine, and that's totally legit, I guess. And they'd still make a ton of money, but yes, you can do some versions of CPM in VMware, which is ridiculous and awesome. You can also run GEM, GEM in VMware and VirtualBox. You can do anything, but not OS X. Why not? I don't know. You run Windows 7, which has not yet been released, under VMware with full 3D acceleration, but not OS X. You can't even get it to boot legally. Anyway, it's ridiculous. That's all I got to say on that. Oh, yeah, the other thing bad with the iPhone is no multitasking. Wise guy just made a mention of that. And that's pretty fantastic there. All right, so we're gonna keep on going here. The gentlemen behind the camera now have done something that's created a funny buzz, and I like it. I like it that they created this funny buzz. I don't know why they did that, but they've done that. All right, the lines are open. If you've got anything exciting to say, and Jorge, you can call back if, and I repeat, if you did discover kryptonite and are holding it in your hand. Otherwise, Jorge, you're out. All right. Lines are open. Lines are open. All right. Well, let's do the countdown here. Let's go ahead and say if you want to call in to Coding with Bryan, you have 1 minute to do so. And I'm just going to close the lines. And you can't call in anymore. I'm going to talk, and you can't even respond. That's just how it's going to go. All right. 45 seconds. Oh, my gosh, JCA. I
Hey,
love it.
Bryan.
I think this happened actually probably a good couple months ago. We did a coding with Brian. I made the same threat. Boom, JZA called in. I love it.
So what's going on?
You got to turn on the screen volume there, JZA. We got. I'm hearing myself in the background.
That's good. Now, so here's some questions about it. Well,
Yeah.
so first you talk about cell phones. I do wonder, and you talk a little bit about it, why you didn't mention the Blackberry.
Yep.
And I guess you answered that already. So the second question was about, well, the iPhone is true that many carriers are coming with their own custom apps, but wouldn't it be just like traditional shipment? You just put a website, put the app, and let people download it from it? I mean, I do wonder how much restricted the actual shop
Yeah,
to,
you know,
to
I'm
install an application.
I'm kind of curious myself. On the Android side of things, I know you can enable the ability to download apps from a website. Basically, you have to go in and there's a like a checkbox in the setting you have to check to allow the ability to install like apps from a website. So that's cool. It's kind of weird that it's off by default, but it's cool that's there. What I'm really curious about is what the individual carriers are going to be doing. What I've been hearing from a lot of people, and Chris is really screwing around with audio right now. What I'm hearing from a lot of people is that the individual carriers are going to restrict some of the applications based on like data usage. So like let's say you get it like a version of Skype application or a streaming application. There's a Ustream application. This is kind of cool. For Android, there's a Ustream application that lets you stream video as you record it over 3G up to Ustream and broadcast it out to everyone. Obviously, this is kind of interesting to us here because it would be very cool to go to, say, to an OzCon or Ubuntu Live or Linux World and just be able to literally walk around with a phone pointed at people and stream live video of the event as we're going. However, some carriers are looking at that and saying, holy crap, that is a lot of data over our network. And so they're thinking they can start restricting those applications. So they have a custom app store that restricts it. The good news is it is technically possible to utilize different app stores within Android, as I understand it. But most standard users aren't going to know to do that, and probably aren't going to do that. That's kind of the big crux of it. So you're just going to hit like less people overall. You know what I'm saying?
Well, most of the way that at least a lot of applications have been shipping to the mobile is through SMS. So
Yeah,
you
that's
will
true.
send an SMS and they will send you the actual URL to install.
That's true. Which,
So
yeah.
another question was about Maimo. Well, Nokia owns Qt now.
Yeah.
Well, it owns the Qt Trolltech.
Yeah.
And they actually been pushing a lot the whole framework into Maimo. And here's the thing: is like, can you? I mean, I don't think you waste your time developing for Maimo in the sense that right now it's a phone, but it also could grow within the Nokia family, and Nokia is like the largest mobile manufacturer.
Oh, they're huge.
So if Nokia do a 180 and start adopting Maimo for like say 7 different applications, or I mean 7 different models,
right?
You could have a market there. Plus,
you really
they're
could.
more spread out. Nokia is already worldwide as opposed to iPhone that actually is going by steps, launching in the US, and then later on it will go to Europe and so on.
Totally. And the really cool part about it is if you're going the C++ and Qt route to develop Maimo apps right now, it's very easy to refactor those apps to run on other devices as well, because you can actually compile Qt current applications to run on Windows Mobile and like every desktop OS there is. So if for some reason Maimo tanks, you've got an escape strategy. Your code is still good. It's still useful. You didn't just throw away, 2 years of development. You can keep doing it everywhere, which is kind of slick. Whereas if you go with the iPhone side of things, it's all these custom widgets that work really specifically for only iPhone, and really you can't take your code for the most part and just go to OS X or to another platform. So Maimo's not that bad of a bet right now. It's a niche player. It's a tiny market. And I seriously am currently doubting the acceptance of the current user base to maybe buy commercial software. But I think that might change as more phones are going to be running Mamo, which it sounds like is going to be happening.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
it'd be cool. Well, hey,
So
man.
those are my questions, and yeah, just go on with your show.
Okay.
Take care, man.
Will
Bye.
do, JZA. Thanks for calling in, man. And that was JZA. JZA, you get the high five from me right there. JZA just got it. All right. All right, so what else we got going on here? Yeah, someone points out the Cydia. So if you jailbreak your iPhone, that's true. You can install pretty much whatever you want on it if you jailbreak it. But come on, that's a jailbroken iPhone. And I know a lot of people do it, but let's be real. Most people are going to get the phone, going to get their PDA, and they're going to leave it just as is. That's just how it's going to work. And they're going to want to install a couple of cool apps for it, and that's it. That's how people are going to do it. I mean, let's be honest. I jailbroke this iPhone here. Immediately went back to non-jailbroken because honestly, the jailbroken phone crashed all the time. It was driving me crazy. Of course, I'm not going to live with a phone that's crashing all the time. That's just ridiculous. So I went right back, and I think a lot of people do the same. So it's kind of like with the Android side of things. Technically, you can install apps just from a website. You have to go into the settings and turn on a checkbox, and it's really easy to do. But like even me, I didn't even know about it until one of our listeners pointed it out. I played around with Android a ton, but I somehow had missed that little checkbox sitting there. And so I really doubt that most users will ever even know that exists. And so it really limits the flexibility. And so that's kind of how I feel about that. So it's strange, but in terms of flexibility, Mamo is very flexible, but lacks the great integrated high-profile software store that I'd like to see there. Windows Mobile, you've got the marketplace, and you can install whatever apps you want, either from the desktop or by putting an installer on the device. So really, that's the most flexible platform right now for distributing applications, which doesn't thrill me. I would like it to be like Android. I would like to be able to say, okay, I want to point at Android and I want to really focus on that development. But right now, the most flexible, the most, oddly enough, open platform for application developers is Windows Mobile, which is kind of messed up. JC actually makes a good point here in the chat room that Mamo doesn't really need a store. It has a package manager within the Mamo phone. That is actually awesome. For those of you who have not tried a Mamo device, it's basically based on Debian. It's actually based on something called Hilden, which is a GNOME-based mobile Linux distribution, and it is awesome. And so it's got a built-in repo, and of course you can add additional repositories full of software to it. The problem with it is it doesn't have the software store, so selling commercial apps is a little harder. That said, you can just have on your website a single one-click installation thing, kind of like how OpenSUSE has the one-click install stuff you can do. They have that under Mamo as well, where you can just click from a website, boom, it just links automatically to the application manager, which pops up and adds or temporarily adds the repository that has your commercial or open or close or whatever software in it. Adds it, says, hey, you want to install this app? Is from this other place that, Nokia doesn't control, might be, scary, but, hey, it's not so bad. And then you say, okay, yeah, install it. Boom, it's installed. It's very, very handy. It's as good as you can get without also having some sort of a application store. And so I really love Mamo. It's just a phenomenal little device. Honestly, I'm super, super excited for the N900 to hit. I can't even describe how excited I am for that to hit. Yeah, and you can have full Skype on Mamo. So a couple people were just curious. Yeah, what's great, even with the old N800s and the N810s the N810 that I've got, it has a little stand, so you can put it on a stand, set it right in front of you, log on to Skype, and you can even use your Skype phone numbers to call in and call out, and you can essentially use it as a super cheap data-only phone. It's really, really nice. Love it. Love the bejesus out of it. So that's that. So the lines are open. If anyone else wants to call in, we're gonna go for about I got about 10 more minutes. I got some extra stuff I can talk about, but I want to give you guys a chance to call in if you've got any questions. Again, if you've got any experience with BlackBerry development, I'd kind of would like to hear from you. If not in this show, maybe write me an email or go on over to jupiterbroadcasting.com /forum or jupitercolony.com. It's the same basic place, and leave a note in there somewhere talking about it, because I'm very curious what people's experiences making BlackBerry apps is like. That's just not something I know that much about, other than I look at Blackberries and I immediately think, man, 1996 was cool, and then I move on immediately and think about any other phone. So that's just kind of how I go there. That's the good stuff. So, right. All right. I think we're just about out of time. We're going to do the countdown. This is the final countdown, which is much like the Totally Awesome song that I'm sure half of you are singing in your head right now. You've got 60 seconds to call in for this episode here of Coding with Bryan. Now, if you like Coding with Bryan, you want to see more of it, you want to have more shows like this, definitely let us know. Hop on over to jupitercolony.com. Let us know in there. Go into the general section. There's a general forum in there, and leave a note in there. And let us know if you'd like the show, if you want us to keep doing the show, if you think the show should be put on jupiterbroadcasting.com, if it should be a staple, if we should have a schedule, et cetera, et cetera. And if you do like the show and you think it should be a constantly running thing, definitely take a little time and think about any questions you might have. We've covered a lot of stuff in the few episodes we've done. We spent some time talking about like databases in the past. We spent a lot of time talking about the pluses and minuses of different like packaging and installer formats. We spent a fair bit of time talking about Python, oddly enough. I guess it's not that odd. Yeah, so if you're interested, definitely hop on over to jupitercolony.com, the general section, just get talking about various super nerdy related topics, and we'll go from there. In the chat room, Losing Generations mentioning, how about something like Open Pandora? Not a phone, but still embedded. So yeah, Open Pandora is neater than hell. I don't have an Open Pandora. For those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it's basically like the spiritual successor to the GP2X, which is just a Linux-powered and open source handheld gaming device. The Open Pandora is cool because it's kind of like the Nintendo DS in that it's a flip. It's like a clamshell. The screen flips up, but the Open Pandora has a thumb keyboard there and a little control pad. Very, very slick little device. Like the heck out of it. I have no experience developing stuff for it, but I know you can get, there's a lot of emulators and whatnot for it. I'm assuming it runs like an embedded style X-Windowy system. Don't know much about it, but if anyone has experience with it, oh yeah, it's a touchscreen. Definitely let me know. I'd love to hear from you guys if you have any experience actually working with that device. Project Morris points out it might be worthwhile to have a theme to each particular episode, like the Blackberry show, or like the Mamo show and that sort of thing. It's actually not a bad idea. Part of me kind of likes the free-flowing nature of just being able to chat about coding topics, things that typically we would do on the Computer Action Show, but make my co-host Chris's eyes glaze over, and he has absolutely nothing to add to it, and he's just not interested in talking about these topics half the time. So I kind of like having those little moments. But if you guys think we could have a show dedicated to particular themes and particular topics, we could go with that. Like today, we started off talking mostly about mobile development. We could do more of those. I'm not sure what the next episode would be, but if you have an idea, definitely hop into the forum and let us know. All right. We are going to, next episode, entirely ponies and unicorns. Thanks, Jeremy. Now, don't head on out. We've got the Computer Action Show coming up next. With all sorts of good stuff. Oh, we got a person here. I missed a call from Casey. All right, or from Corey. All right, I'll take this call. Really quick, just because this guy tried to call. That's good stuff. And will Skype connect? Hey, is this Corey?
Hey there.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good. I was wondering what type of applications would be the best for profit-wise, whether it be mobile or web or desktop.
For profit?
Profit-wise, yeah.
Oh man, see, honestly, it's seeming. I'm assuming you're thinking from the hobbyist point of view, from one
Yes.
guy sitting at home with two kids, and he really wants to get out of his job and just be a software developer.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Without the kids yet. Honestly, it seems like mobile development's kind of the way to go currently. I mean, because the mobile apps are tiny, right? I mean, like if you look at the iPhone apps that are making it big, aside from the games, push the games off to the side and just focus on like just the little utilities. There's so many of those utilities that are doing very well that are basically one-trick ponies. It is really hard to do a one-trick pony application for Linux or Windows or OS 10 and make any money. People just will look at it and say, all it does is this. I can just, blah, 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 install this free utility and then add a couple of scripts on the command line and do kind of the same thing. And so no one buys it. The only downside is it seems like mobile apps, everyone expects them to be 99 cents now, which is a little annoying. If you, I don't know, how old are you? How old are you there, Corey?
I'm 20.
All right. So, I don't know. Have you ever watched any old episodes of the Computer Chronicles?
A couple of the ones
All
I
right.
see on your streaming.
All right, good man, good man. All right, well, if you watch any of those old episodes, they'll do reviews of software back in the day. And the apps that they made back then, now, and bear in mind, this is 1980s dollars, like 1985. They'll put out like a small, like a number crunching app or like a horribly cheap football game that obviously one person made. The game will cost $70. And that's in mid-1980s dollars. And those were the days where a lot of the companies we have nowadays, like the game companies like id and Apogee and 3D Realms and everyone else, that's where they got started because it was actually possible to get started with that general pricing scheme. Because you could sell, only 1,000 units and you've made enough to pay for one person to live for that year. Nowadays, they expect the apps to be 99 cents to $5 on every platform. Like you'll notice, even with the apps I sell on the desktop side, I really end up having had to pull down my prices down to $10. Because of course, you want more people using your apps, but I found that even with my apps priced around like the $20 price range, people generally boycotted them. They're like, what? $20? Can you believe that for computer software? Software should be free. And I don't mean like capital F free, like open source free. I mean as in they don't want to have to pay for anything. I'm not going to say free as in beer free. I'm going to just straight up say they don't want to pay for anything because they're cheap. And that's generally the gut reaction. And I don't blame them because I'm the exact same way. When I go and I need to grab an application and I see an app that's like $50, I immediately think, what? Can you believe that? That's ridiculous. And that's kind of a mentality that we've gotten stuck in. So, but at least on the mobile side, people don't really pirate applications as much. And so even if your apps are priced low, like say $5, $2 to $5, you'll still make the sales. And if you can be on an application platform like the iPhone or something where there's a really ubiquitous app store, you can reach a critical market share where you can make 100,000 sales, and then it makes up for it in volume. Now, if you're going for like Mamo, it's not doable. There's not 100,000 people walking around clamoring to buy Mamo apps. So really, you're limited to like Windows Mobile and iPhone if you're going mobile currently. Symbian applications just don't seem to sell quite that well, and Symbian's kind of on the decline anyway. Nokia's kind of migrating more towards Mamo, it seems. But for right now, and Android's not big enough yet to really make a difference. So right now, you've either got to go iPhone or Windows Mobile, or you need to kind of forego the mobile side of things and focus on desktop apps. I've kind of hedged my bets personally, so I do a little bit of both now because I'm honestly not really sure where the future of software development and making a living from it is coming from. That said, I would love to see more mom and pop shop Linux development houses. So if you ever get the urge to make commercial software and are just thinking about which platform to go for, I would love to see it available for Linux. But I know that's a real challenge, and I've found that to be fairly hard to make a decent living there. But I think that as time goes on, if you actually go to lunduke.com, in the top right, there's a commercial software link where I've kind of been slowly collecting like the various commercial software that's available for Linux, and there's really not that much. There is some, but it's just mostly it's like the big things, like the big iron, like VMware and things like that. But I mean, really, that doesn't really count, because you and we can't sit down and make the next VMware. We just can't.
Right.
We don't have that ability. But what we can do is like I made a comic book reader, and people pointed at it and like, comic book reader, that's such a tiny app. One guy can make that. Well, I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point, guys. I'm only one guy. I can't come out. I'm not going to make the next Microsoft Office. I'm not going to make the next Adobe Photoshop. I'm just one guy. If I try and make Photoshop by myself, you're going to end up with something that's a little bit better than MS Paint. And that's just the way it's going to be, because it's just one guy. And people are spoiled. They aren't really used to that anymore. We've kind of gotten away from that mentality where we buy one-off applications to serve a simple purpose from mom and pop developers, and so it's very hard to be a mom and pop developer shop. I got the 5-minute sign from Chris, but anyway. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like when you're looking at software development, what do you want to do? Like what makes you excited to actually create?
Well, I'm actually kind of struggling on that.
I hear. Okay, let me ask this: what's your primary desktop platform? Let's start from right
Linux.
there. All right. Okay. So on Linux, what sort of application do you want? I mean, what do you want to see? What would you be willing to buy as a commercial app on Linux?
Well, nothing I can make. So, see, it would be like a Photoshop. I can't make that.
Yep. Video editor.
Video, exactly. I can't make that.
Just so you know, I actually spent probably about 3 months working on a GStreamer-based video editor for Linux, and I got it to the point where it kind of sort of worked. I could do like some simple frame cutting and things like that, and so it was almost on par with like a Kino or a whatnot, and then I realized there is no way I could put the spit and polish and features on it, even in the next year of full-time development, and have it be even a competitor to like the worst version of Windows Movie Maker. Like I just couldn't do it.
Right.
It's awful. But so I mean, it is a difficult one. Now, what would be a potentially interesting thing is, now what if you would sat down and say, and you come up with an application like so. We'll use some of my apps as an example, just because there's not a lot of commercial apps out there to use. So let's say like Radical Codex, right? So I'm putting together a little ebook comic app, and that's one app. It's a small app. Sure, it only is going to appeal to a niche, but that niche really wants it. Let's say that you also come up with something along those lines. Like let's say you come up with some really cool social networking photo blaster. I don't know what that exactly would be, but you come up with something like that. What would be really great to see is a lot of the commercial Linux developers get together and band together and join forces, like put together their own website where there's like a commercial Ubuntu, OpenSUSE, Fedora set of repos where all the commercial developers all keep their up-to-date applications in the same spot, that we can point to all the Linux users of the world, say, hey, everyone, go here for your commercial apps. If you want apps that are actually supported, if you want apps that people are actually putting time and money and dedication into, go to this one spot. And I think if something like that were to happen, I think that sales would increase dramatically. I mean, just because a lot of the reason we don't have sales is people don't know what's available. I mean, just as a side note, most of the shareware world, which is kind of where I've kind of came from, measures your success by your conversion ratios. A standard good conversion ratio on Windows is about 1,000 to 1, meaning you get about 1,000 downloads, you make one sale. My conversion ratio for my Linux software is about 40 to 1, meaning I get about 40 downloads. For every 40 downloads, I make a sale. The problem is I don't get that many downloads. So, and it's not that people are coming to the website, seeing it and going, ugh, I don't want that piece of software. What they're just not finding out about the software and that it exists. And so we need to find a way to really get the word out, because Linux users don't go to download.com. They don't go to Softpedia. They don't go to Version Tracker. They don't have all these websites that you go to. They're like GNOME Files and a couple others, but they don't go there looking for commercial apps. So we need something like that. Maybe the Ubuntu software store
I was just
that
about
they're
to mention
making.
that, yeah.
Are you an Ubuntu guy, or are you a SUSE guy, or?
I used to be SUSE, but I've switched to Ubuntu lately.
Yeah, that's kind of the path I took too. I did SUSE for a while, then I moved to Fedora. Fedora 6 was my thing, and now I've been Ubuntu since then. But maybe with that repository and maybe that software store from Ubuntu, that'll do the job. But we don't get that for another year. It's going to be 1 year until 10.10 is out, and that's the current roadmap for Ubuntu, allowing us to sell software in the store. So until then, I think it's really up to the core 20 or so mom and pop shops that exist on the Linux side to really band together and make it work for themselves. If you're really interested in doing something like that and you want to focus on desktop development, feel free to get in touch with me. And there's a couple other developers I've been talking with, and we can kind of band together and do something like that. But that's really we have to kind of take it into our own hands and really make it happen. That's all I got. I know that's not a direct answer to which way to go, mobile or desktop, but that's kind of all there is. Yeah.
I hear you.
It's a tough one.
Definitely is.
But yeah, definitely. If you're interested, here's the thing: if you're not certain what kind of software to make for Linux that is sellable, I'm just going to leave you because I have to wrap it up because Chris and Jeremy are now looking at me with evil eyes. But here's a recommendation I'll have. Most developers, ones that work in shops or whatnot, their biggest problem is that they just simply didn't make the software. They sit around forever going, hey, what software should we make? And I'm going to go on a limb and say that you've made lists of software that you would think that you might be able to make. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every dev does that. And the problem is then in the end, you end up not doing it because you come up with good reasons to not make each of the apps.
That's actually what happened.
It's totally what happened. Now look at Dropbox, right? I've been kicking myself for a while for this. There have been applications like Dropbox that sync your files between, storage and whatnot for years. I started working on one about, 3 years ago. But then I thought, oh man, no one's going to pay for this, technically there are ways to do this without needing my app, so I won't make any money, so I stopped using it. Now Dropbox is freaking huge. And I'm looking at that and going, if I would have just made it, if I would have just finished the work, I could have done okay. So just take the plunge. Pick an app, pick one that you think is cool, pick one that is doable within, say, a month, maybe 2 months, that you can put some spit and polish on. Hook up with a couple other developers or an artist who can help you put some snazzy icons on it. Or heck, if you're on the Linux side, just use like the Tango icon themes because the Tango icons are free to use in commercial apps and they look great. I'm actually using the Tango icons in Radical Comic Designer now just because they look so good. I had some custom made. Tango ones just look better, so I'm using them now. And just get one app out the door, even if 90% of the people who see it say, why would I ever pay for an app like that? Well, you don't care. If you can get 10% of the people out there to think, oh, I might be willing to pay for that, gravy train. You're in good shape. So just pick one that you'd want to have anyway, even if an app exists. Pick one that you think you could make it look a little better or run just a little nicer or have one extra feature and just make it. Just call it good. Just make it. And
all right, sounds good.
And then, and then seriously, and then email me, and then we'll get a group of us together, and we'll storm the castle, and we'll tell every Linux user to start buying software so that we can feed our families.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Good talking to you.
You betcha.
Bye.
All right. I got to wrap it up for this episode. Otherwise, Chris and Jeremy are going to probably cut my head off because they think I'm talking too much. But again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in for this Coding with Bryan. As usual, the people start really calling in near the end of the episode. Next episode that we do, I'll plan it a little ahead of time. And if you've got questions, anything, you'll notice we'll take anything software development related, plan it out ahead of time, and don't hesitate to call in right at the beginning of the show. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next week. But yeah, I'm gonna sign off. Head over. You can probably find this over at youtube.com/channel/Jupiter Broadcasting, or potentially just jupiterbroadcasting.com. I don't know. We're still working that out. If you have thoughts, head on over. Let us know. And I think that just about wraps it up for this installment of Season Awesome episode. Hey, Jeremy, what was the episode called? Was it Hooah? I don't think it was Hooah. Hoorah? Maybe. Whatever episode I called this one, my episode naming convention might end up being a little more complicated than I thought it would be at first. Let's just call this one episode Unicorn, because that seemed to be the theme of everything. And we'll see you next time. And hey, thanks.